So this is the epic finale to Nerdspawn Genesis. Just a little heads up, if you have not listened to parts 1 through 5, you probably want to listen to those before you listen to this one. But this one's a lot of fun. Big spoilers if you haven't listened to the first one. But this one's a lot of fun. I look forward to sharing this with everybody. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. I'll have a few words at the end of the story, so if you just stick around till the end, I'll have more to say. But let's enter the world of Nerdspawn. Chapter 22. Adam, Bruce, and Sean slept while wedged together in a tight formation on the couch. Each had a blanket pulled up to their chins, and their heads leaned askew in positions that ensured discomfort upon waking. Adam snored with his mouth hung open, rivulets of drool traced a path through Bruce's beard, and Sean wore a creepy grin that suggested whatever he was dreaming, it was meant to be dreamt in private. Manny was right. All three of them could sleep on the couch. The alarm on Bruce's phone tore through the room and shattered the three men's peaceful repose. Sean and Adam banged their heads together when they jerked awake, and Bruce used the back of his arm to wipe away the hours of saliva collected in his slimy beard. Bruce said, "It's time to go, boys." His knees popped when he stood. "Today's the day. We need to get dressed and head to the show." Sean tossed his blanket aside and lurched up to his feet. "I better make sure the little guy's up." He staggered over to the bedroom, not yet fully awake, and pounded on the door. "Time to get..." The door swung open before Sean could finish his sentence. Manny stood in the threshold, already clad in his armor. "Man, I've been up for 30 minutes, just waiting on your old butts." He placed the teapot helm atop his head. "Okay." Sean pivoted and made his way to the bathroom. "My costume's in the crapper. I'll get dressed in there." Manny trotted into the common room. "Are you guys going to get dressed?" Adam retrieved his glasses from the arm of the couch and put them on. "My stuff's in the bedroom." He stumbled to the room Manny just vacated. Bruce pointed to a large plastic bag in one corner of the common room. "My costume's over there." He flashed an uncomfortable smile at the armor-clad 12-year-old. "Any chance I could get a little privacy?" Manny groaned. "Huh, sure, I'll wait outside." He stepped out the apartment's door and on to the concrete entry. Bruce opened the bag and commenced donning his costume. He started by pulling on tights that amounted to little more than white pantyhose. The elastic band around them bit into his ample midsection. Next, he slid the tight green hot pants over his hips. He had to suck in his gut to get them in proper position. He pulled a thin green t-shirt over his head, then slid on the red vest with the yellow R emblazoned over his left man boob. He tied the yellow cape around his neck before slipping on gloves and little green elf shoes. The final piece to his ensemble was the black domino mask he placed over his eyes. The tiny mask looked odd surrounded by his full and mostly gray beard. He lacked the youthful appearance of Burt Ward in 1966, but he more than made up for it in enthusiasm. Adam returned from the bedroom. "Holy love handles, Batman! Robin looks like he's about to pop." He wore a costume of his own. A long-sleeved black shirt and matching trousers made up the core of his garb, with a black cape draped across his shoulders. Silver plastic toy swords were strapped to his belt, and he held a mask and a black hat in one hand. He took off his glasses and put on the black hat with a wide brim, then topped it off by donning a Guy Fawkes mask. Bruce's eyes gleamed with joy. "You're V! That's perfect for you." "I'm not just V." Adam put his glasses on, outside the mask. "I'm Chubby V." He put his hands on his hips and turned his head to one side. The bathroom door burst open and Sean leaped out. He landed in a three-point stance and stuck out one hand, palm up. The middle two fingers pressed against his palm, while the thumb, index finger, and pinky stuck out. He was dressed as Spider-Man, or, more accurately, Nick Hammond's version of Spider-Man. The crouching man served as a living reminder of just how far superhero movies had come in 40 years. Sean stood upright and held out his arms. "What do you think?" The red and blue suit hung a bit loose. The silver ovals that covered his eyes had dozens of tiny holes in them and looked like little colanders. Thick, clunky white bracelets ringed each of his wrists, non-functioning web shooters to accent his ensemble. At the area where his legs came together was an unnatural and asymmetric bulge. Adam pointed. "Lose the socks. You're not fooling anybody." Spider Sean crossed his arms. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Come on, man," said Adam. "You shove socks in your crotch." "I did no such thing." Sean tilted his head to one side. "Whatever gives you that idea?" "We've seen you drip dry." Bruce stepped over to Adam's side. "Besides, that bulge looks inorganic." Sean shook his head. "Bruce, you're ridiculous." A knocking came at the front door. Manny's muffled voice could be heard at the other side. "Can I come in yet? It's hot out here." "Oh, yes." Bruce ran to the door and opened it. "Come take a gander at our costumes." Manny stepped through the door and looked at his three dads. "You all look like you escaped from the funny farm." He pointed at Bruce and wrinkled his forehead. "I'm pretty sure that counts as a crime against humanity." Bruce threw up his gloved fists and struck his best Robin pose. "Dick Grayson till the day I die." "Huh," said Manny. "What that outfit's bound to be doing to your circulation, that might be today." Adam waved a hand through the air. "Come on, guys. We need to get a move on." "Wait!" Sean walked to the kitchenette. "I need to get our passes." He pulled open a drawer. "Oh, snap! In all the excitement, I forgot. I only have 3 VIP passes." He looked back to the common room. "There's 4 of us now." Adam brought a hand to the chin of his Guy Fawkes mask. "Well, that throws a big old monkey wrench into our plans." Manny bared his teeth. "You mean you dragged me halfway across the country for this thing, and I don't even have a ticket?" Bruce said, "We can get you a pass at the show." Sean frowned and shook his head. "We're not going to get a VIP pass the morning of." He arched an eyebrow. "And a day pass will set us back $20. Bruce rubbed his beard. "I've got an idea." He looked at Adam. "Do you still have your Ben Grimm trench coat?" Adam nodded. "Yeah? Why?" "Go get it," said Bruce. "I think I know how we can all get in with 3 passes." "What are you getting at?" asked Adam. "Just go get the coat," answered Bruce. Adam went into the bedroom and retrieved his Ben Grimm trench coat from the closet. It was an oversized tan garment with a belt looped around its middle. Its length was such that it dragged the ground, even when worn by someone as tall as Adam. He wadded it into a bundle and carried it to the common room. Bruce greeted Adam with a nod. "Good, take it with us. We need to catch the Lynx." He grabbed his backpack and walked to the door. The other 3 fetched their own backpacks and followed Bruce on the short walk to the light rail station. The train arrived and they boarded a car that was only half full. The costumed quartet received more than a few long, sideways glances as they entered. Sean claimed a seat near the door. When he sat, the people on either side of him gave his costume a quick look, then moved away. Adam and Bruce claimed the newly empty seats next to Sean. Bruce beckoned at Manny. "Do you want to sit? We can scoot together and make room." Manny lowered his eyebrows and shook his head. "No, I think I'm fine standing." He moved to the far side of the car. "In fact, I'm just going to stand over here." Bruce pointed at Sean's leg. "Hey, Sean, there's a lump on your knee." Sean looked down, viewing the lump through his eye colanders. "Aw, crap, the sock slid down my leg." Adam's head snapped over to Sean. "I knew you shoved socks in there." Sean grabbed the lump and tried to roll it up his inner thigh. He grunted as he worked at it. "Stop it!" Adam whacked Sean on the shoulder. "You're going to get arrested." Sean released his grip on the lump and turned toward Adam. "This suit is one piece. I can't get to it." Bruce asked, "What are you going to do if you have to pee?" Sean answered, "I'm just going to hold it." Bruce furrowed his brow. "You're going to hold it all day?" Sean nodded. "I've done it before." He sat up straight and left the lump of sock suspended at his mid-thigh. It looked like a tumor. After a few stops, the train arrived at the convention center. It was more than an hour before the VIP gates opened, and about 20 people were already in line. They were all in costume. There were 12 Deadpools, 7 Harley Quinns, and 1 Ash from Pokemon. The early arrivals chatted with excitement as they waited for the gates to open. "Here are the passes, boys." Sean handed Bruce and Adam a lanyard before putting one around his own neck. In the short walk from the light rail station to the convention center entry, the lump fell from his thigh to his ankle and looked a little less unsettling. "So, what about me?" asked Manny. "That's why Adam brought the trench coat," answered Bruce. "Before we go in, he'll climb on your shoulders, just like he did in Dr. Hammerclaw's office." He held his hands wide. Then he slips on the coat, and presto, you two look like one person. "The oldest trick in the book," said Adam. "Yeah," said Manny, "the How to Be a Crazy Person book." "Don't worry." Bruce gave Manny a thumbs up. "It'll work." They stood in line silently as the minutes ticked away. Sean tapped his foot against the ground, and the balled-up socks at his ankle bounced. Attendants arrived at the gate, signaling they would soon grant VIPs early entry. "You need to move quick." Bruce gave Adam a gentle shove. "Climb up on his shoulders." Adam looked at Manny through his bespectacled Guy Fawkes mask. He might need to take that helmet off. The spout could poke in some uncomfortable places. "This is humiliating." Manny took off his tea kettle helm and handed it to Bruce. "Just get up here, Four Eyes, before I change my mind." Adam handed the bundled-up trench coat to Sean and perched on Manny's shoulders. Sean helped Adam don the coat and cinched the belt to keep the garment closed. Bruce handed the teapot to Adam. "Here, you hold this. It ruins my Robin vibe." His eyebrows raised. "Maybe I should be Vibe next year. I like breakdancing." "Just give it to me." Adam snatched the teapot from Bruce. He swayed side to side as Manny inched his way to the gate. The attendant checked Adam's pass. "You look a little unsteady there, big fella. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," answered Adam. "I just got really drunk at breakfast. I'll sober up by lunch." The attendant gave the tiny shell top sprouting from the bottom of the coat a suspicious glance. "Your feet are awfully small for such a big guy." "My parents refused to buy me new shoes growing up. It stunted my feet." Adam laughed. "But you know what they say about guys with little feet? They have a whole lot of fire in the furnace." The attendant's face screwed up in confusion. "What?" Manny scampered into the convention center with Adam wobbling on his shoulders. Adam called out, "Smell you later, sucker!" Sean showed his lanyard to the attendant. The attendant asked, "What's that guy's deal?" Sean shook his head. "I have no idea. He's not with us." He cocked his head to one side. "Can you believe it? Drinking at this hour?" The attendant shrugged. "I've already had a few." He pointed. "What's that lump on your ankle?" Sean shouted, "I didn't stuff my crotch!" The attendant said, "Huh?" Bruce said, "He can hold his pee all day." The attendant said, "What?" Bruce said, "I know, right?" The attendant waved them through. "Just don't cause any trouble, weirdos." Chapter 23. Sean and Bruce ran to catch up to the unholy amalgamation that was Adam perched atop Manny. Once the party was reunited, they stepped onto the escalator that descended to the showroom floor. Adam swayed throughout the entirety of the escalator's slow descent. At the bottom, they stepped aside to clear the path for the folks behind them. "You can get off me now." Manny's muffled voice came from the belt line of the large trench coat. "Really?" said Adam, still wobbling on his perch. "I was just getting into the tall, drunk guy with little feet character." "You can hop down, or I can throw you," said Manny. "The choice is yours." All right, no need for violence." Adam climbed down, and Manny emerged from the front of the coat. "It was getting stuffy in there." Manny wiped sweat from his forehead. "Where's my helmet?" Adam handed the modified teapot headwear to the young man. "Now I need to lose this coat so I can show off the anarchic beauty of my costume." He pulled the coat off his shoulders and balled it up. "I'll stow this once we get settled." Sean beckoned at the others and walked forward. "Let's find the hex display before this place starts to get crowded." The group passed through the sparsely populated convention space. They passed vendors setting up tables with long boxes of comics, plastic pop figures, and bootlegs of obscure and often bad superhero movies. A few of the writers and artists were settling into Artist Alley in preparation for a long day of autograph signing, but Indie Island was nearly empty at this early hour. The familiar smell of aged comic books and low-grade concessions wafted on the air, not yet corrupted by the odors that would accompany the attendees as the day progressed. The local roller derby league was setting up a photo op booth, and an overweight black manta struggled to shove a hot dog under his helmet. A Skeletor waved at Manny. "Hey, kid, can I get a picture with you?" Manny stopped and looked up at the blue villain through narrow eyes. "Why do you want a picture?" "I love Beauty and the Beast." The expression on Skeletor's mask didn't change, but he sounded like he was smiling. "I've never seen a guy dressed as Mrs. Potts before." "Man," Manny scowled at Skeletor. "I'm not Mrs. Potts." "Sorry," Skeletor shrugged. "Honest mistake. Who are you then?" Sean put a spider-gloved hand on Manny's shoulder. "He's the world's newest superhero, Lil Man." He held up a finger. "We should have a thermos line available soon." Adam added, "Be sure to check out Hero Movie Podcast. We talk about..." Skeletor walked away without being polite enough to let Adam finish his spiel. Adam shook his fist. "I'm glad He-Man always kicks your butt." Bruce adjusted his domino mask. "I don't think he heard you." "It doesn't matter." Adam crossed his arms and looked at Sean. "Should we try to find Rocket Face?" Sean looked at Adam through the tiny colanders over his eyes. "There's no time. We need to set up our perimeter." He resumed walking. "Besides, he's bound to be busy. Rocket Face will find us if he needs us." "He won't recognize us in these disguises." Adam adjusted his glasses and hat. "We should at least tell him we have to bail on our panel." "There's 2 hours before the panels start." Sean held his hands wide as he walked. "I'll figure out how to get word to him." Bruce frowned as he stared at the tables they passed. Chip Zdarsky, Matt Fraction, Jason Latour, they're all here and I won't even get to see them. Adam turned his masked face toward Bruce. "You've seen all those guys before." Bruce nodded. "Yeah, but I wanted to see them again. Ron Mars might worry about me if I don't say hi." Sean chuckled. "I think Ron will be okay." Bruce pointed. "Look, it's glorious!" They arrived at the Jonah Hex movie memorabilia display at the very back of the convention space. It stood prominently between the Mos Eisley Cantina and a life-size TARDIS that was, unfortunately, not bigger on the inside. The display was the centerpiece of this year's con and featured everything that was promised. A tomahawk and an old rifle were on the right side. The left side featured a gray Confederate cavalry hat above a saber. In the center of the display stood a horse-mounted Gatling gun with saddle, and above the gun was the main attraction. Dead center, and at eye level, stringy latex flesh was stretched over a harness. It was the facial prosthetic used by Josh Brolin during the movie's filming. Other accoutrements framed the edges of the display. A selection of posters featuring scenes from the movie hung next to each of the props. Speakers affixed high on the particle board wall that held the memorabilia pumped out heavy rock music by Mastodon, the band that recorded the Jonah Hex theme song. No one else had made it to the display. Adam pointed to the corners of the long display. "We need to take up our positions." Sean stepped to the right corner. "All clear on my side." Adam walked to the display's left edge. "Everything's quiet over here." Bruce scratched his head and looked at the tile floor. "Do I really need to go to the back?" The particle board slab holding the display was only about 3 feet from the wall behind it. There was enough room for electrical wires and a rear brace, but it did not look to be an inviting place to hang out. Bruce said, "I'll look like a weirdo just standing back there." Adam surveyed Bruce in his tight but accurate 1966 TV Robin costume. "That ship's already sailed, my friend." He pointed over his shoulder with a thumb. "Get back there and do your duty, soldier." He added, "Manny can keep you company until the crowd arrives." Manny's eyes shot wide open. "I'm not hiding back there with Beardy." He pointed at Bruce. "Especially not when he's dressed like Peter Pan falling on hard times." Bruce huffed, then waddled into the space between the display and the wall. He muttered things under his breath which almost certainly called Adam's parentage into question. "Hey, Sean!" Adam nodded his head toward 3 figures approaching the display. "Here come some suspicious-looking characters." 3 individuals strolled together in full-body animal costumes. A panda bear was in the middle with a beaver on one side and a fox on the other. Sean said, "They're just furries. They're fine." Adam shook his head. No furries are fine. He dropped his bundled trench coat to the floor and put a hand on the hilt of a plastic sword. Anybody could be inside there. Sean adjusted his 1970s spider suit. What kind of adult walks around dressed like a high school mascot? He shook his leg and the lump of socks rolled to the rear of his ankle. Can you imagine how they reek at the end of the day? Adam gave his armpit a quick sniff. I'd say pretty badly. The furries walked past them and checked out the TARDIS. Manny groaned. Most old folks are out of touch, but you guys are on a whole other planet. We just know how things are, said Adam. Should we come up with a code word? Sean turned his head toward Adam as if his spider sense was tingling. Why? In case something happens, answered Adam. We need to be able to sound an alarm. That's not a bad idea. Sean put a finger on his masked chin. So what should it be? Adam asked, how about jammy dodgers? Sean shook his head. No, people might think we're giving away cookies and try to get some. Adam leaned his head to one side and thought for a moment. He straightened his head and said, I've got it. How about Excelsior? That's a good thought. Sean held his hands by his shoulders. But what if we get stampeded by a group of true believers? Adam gave his head a slow nod. That could be a safety hazard. Manny sneered. What the shack foo is wrong with you guys? That's it! Adam held a finger in the air. Shack foo won't mean anything to anybody but us. Manny looked away. I should have kept my mouth shut. Adam turned to Sean. Tell Bruce the code word. Sean stuck his head around the edge of the display. Bruce, come here. Bruce emerged from behind the particle board panel. What is it? Sean said, the code word is shack foo. Okay. Bruce turned to crawl back to his post, then stopped and looked over his shoulder. What's it for? Trouble, answered Sean. If there's any sign of Seth, Cody, and Cody with an I, yell out the code word. Got it. Bruce took a step forward, stopped, then walked back to stand beside Sean. But what if I stump my toe? Huh? Said Sean. Bruce said, if I stump my toe, I usually shout shack foo. Sean shrugged. I guess you'll just have to say a real bad word. Bruce rubbed his head and looked at the floor. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. There are kids around after all. Well, try not to stump your toe. Sean waved him away. Now get back to your post. Bruce turned and ran back toward his narrow space. He immediately stumped his toe on the display's brace. His hand slapped over his mouth and his face turned red, but he didn't shout. Instead, he quietly shuffled back to his station. Sean returned to his assigned position at the right corner of the display. People are starting to trickle in. Adam looked at Manny. You probably ought to start walking. Where? Asked Manny. Just in a wide circle. Adam pointed. Just stroll up past the cantina and turn around. He swung his arm and pointed in the opposite direction. Then make your way past the TARDIS and start again. His arm dropped to his side. Sean added, but walk casual. Don't look like you're up to something. Manny furrowed his brow. How do I do that? Normally, answered Sean, I'd say put your hands in your pockets, but your armor doesn't seem to have any pockets. Adam pointed at Manny's torso. Maybe you could hook your thumbs under your breastplate. Manny hooked his thumbs under each side of the scrap metal draped over his chest, and his back took on a slight arch. Does this look casual? Yeah, answered Sean. You look like a medieval farmer. Adam nodded. You never know when Vikings might attack, so you've got to protect your corn. Sean looked at Adam and tilted his head. I don't think medieval farmers grew corn. Fine. Adam's eyes rolled behind his Guy Fawkes mask. Tangerines, then. Really? Sean put his hands on his hips. Your second choice is tangerines? I like tangerines. Adam crossed his arms and looked away. I used to get them in my Christmas stocking. It don't matter, snapped Manny. I'm not a farmer. He strolled in front of the display. Do I look casual? Getting there, answered Sean. Maybe you should whistle. Whistle? Manny raised his eyebrows. What should I whistle? Adam said, how about the theme to Twin Peaks? Manny shook his head. I've never heard that song. It's easy, said Adam. No, it's not, said Sean. Here, let me show you. Adam puckered up behind his mask and whistled. The amelodic ditty echoed behind the mask and sounded like a good many things, but not at all like the Twin Peaks theme. Heck no, Manny grimaced. That sounds like a canary having an asthma attack. What about the Andy Griffith theme? Asked Sean. We are in North Carolina after all. Manny shook his head. I don't want people thinking I'm a hillbilly. What about the Sanford and Son theme song? Adam held his hands out by his sides. I mean, you did grow up in a junkyard. Manny narrowed his eyes and stared at Adam. Son, are you trying to get punched in the nuts? Come on, Adam. Sean shook his head. That would never work. Everyone who heard it couldn't help but whistle along. He waved one hand in a wide circle over his head. Imagine this whole showroom full of people whistling Sanford and Son. It could get really annoying. Adam shrugged. Or really awesome. Sean nodded. True, but it's a risk we can't afford to take. Manny grunted. Screw you guys. I'm just going to stick with what I know. He puckered his lips and whistled the theme to Full House. Sean clapped his hands. Great choice! Manny strolled around, whistling his tune with thumbs hooked under his breastplate like a medieval farmer. Adam leaned his head back and sang, Everywhere you... Copyright, Adam! Sean's shout stopped Adam singing before he could get out the third word. You don't have rights to those lyrics. Adam slapped a hand over his mouth. He shook his head and let his hand fall. That was a close one. Sean nodded. We've all been there, buddy. Adam looked at the ground, then back to Sean. You know what? I think you and Bruce can keep an eye on the display for a few minutes. I'm just going to go find Rocket Face before it gets too crowded. No, said Sean. We need you here. This is a big deal. Look around. Adam held out a hand. There ain't a lot of people here. Just give me 5 minutes to go find Rocket Face. No, you can't, shouted Sean. Why not? Asked Adam. Listen. Sean drew a deep breath and sucked little circles of his mask into his nostrils. I never talked to Rocket Face. I never asked him if we could do a panel. What? Adam held out his hands. This was supposed to be the biggest day in hero movie podcast history. I know. Sean stared down at the floor. I let you down. I really dropped the ball. But why? Asked Adam in a heartbroken tone. I meant to. Really, I did, answered Sean. I never got around to it. Then when you asked me about it, it was so close to the show that I was embarrassed to bring it up. Sean lifted his face and looked at Adam. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry. I can't believe... Sean, I'm disappointed in you. Adam crossed his arms and looked away. I don't think I want to talk to you. The two men stood at their posts in silence and stared off in the distance. The sparse crowd steadily grew dense. Chapter 24. The convention's VIP hour had long ended, and the general admission masses showed up in force. People milled about the aisles of artists, vendors, and displays in numbers thicker than tapioca pudding. In short, the crowd was on. Many of the people stopped to view the Jonah Hex movie memorabilia. Most seemed more curious than awestruck. Some of the comments were less than polite, but no attempted vandalism occurred. As a whole, the press of people were civil. A number of quizzical glances found their way toward Sean and Adam as they stood like silent sentries. The questions in the onlookers' minds were obvious, but none were verbalized. The two costumed men standing quietly with their backs to the movie's props appeared harmless, if a little creepy. Manny's strolling grew quite difficult given the mass of people now in his path, but he sallied forth. He long abandoned his whistled tune, and his thumbs no longer hooked under his breastplate. As the number of attendees grew, his ambulation went from casual to hindered to downright difficult. A mother and child came to a stop in front of the Jonah Hex display. Mom was dressed in jeans and a sensible blouse, and the little tyke wore a green Incredible Hulk t-shirt. The mother spent a moment looking over the display, but the child seemed more interested in Sean. The child looked up at his mother. Mommy, why's that Spider-Man so tall and skinny? He doesn't look anything like the one from the movie. Sean shouted, Nick Hammond was the greatest Spider-Man. It was possible that, perhaps, he was just a little tense. The mother pulled her child closer. Her eyes shot daggers at Sean while she walked away at a rather quick pace. Geez! Adam looked across the wall of memorabilia to Sean. You're yelling at kids now? Sean met Adam's gaze with his tiny colander-covered eyes. I thought you weren't talking to me. He crossed his arms and turned his eyes back to the crowd. I was enjoying the reprieve. Adam shook his head and groaned. Bruce poked his head around the corner, nearer to Sean. Can we switch places now? Sean shook his head. The crowd's too hot right now. We need to wait until there's a lull. Bruce asked, Can I at least come around front and look at the display for a few minutes? He knew darn well there would be no lulls. What's it going to hurt? Sean gave his head a jerk toward the display. Come on around and take a gander. Bruce smiled and wormed his way out from behind the display. It's easier to breathe now. His face wrinkled. It was starting to smell like farts back there. He squeezed around Sean and took in the movie memorabilia. Man, this is so... Look, it's Jonah Hex! A shout from a couple layers deep in the crowd interrupted the bearded man's words. Bruce whipped around to see who it was, and his jaw dropped. Seth was shoving through the foot traffic, and he was not alone. Cody was to his right, and Cody with an eye flanked his left. All three were clad in their signature black fedoras and sported popped collars. Smug smirks adorned all three faces. The notorious trio from This Movie Sucks podcast had arrived. Hey guys, shouted Seth. Why don't we tell everybody what we think of this movie? Cody and Cody with an eye called out their obedient response. This movie sucks! Seth held up a can of red spray paint and shook it. The marble rattled around in the canister like a harbinger of doom. Adam turned his masked face to Bruce. His eyes did a nervous dance within the mask's eye holes behind his glasses. He leaned his head back and shouted, Excelsior! Sean uncrossed his arms and turned to face Adam. That's not the code word! He raised his hands to his mouth and bellowed, Shaq Fu! His voice rose above the general din of the crowd and floated toward Manny. Manny was at the far end of the Mos Eisley Cantina, several obstructed yards away. Complicating matters, the cantina was far more popular an attraction than the Jonah Hex display. Thus, people were packed tightly in front of it. Despite the distance, Manny heard Sean's call to arms. He turned and pushed into the crowd, struggling, making his way back to his dad's. Adam extended his arms far out by his shoulders and lifted his leg. He channeled his inner Daniel LaRusso and prepared for his best crane kick. His balance was suspect, but it was clear to all who saw him that he was preparing for a fight. Sean jumped into a stance he must have thought looked like kung fu. His legs stretched far apart and bowed at the knees. He raised his open hands before him and held them ready for chopping. In truth, his posture more closely resembled an old hound with untreated hip dysplasia than a wushu master. Bruce held both his hands in front of his face, fingers slightly bent and head turned aside. The man's shoulders slumped and one leg crossed in front of the other. His preferred martial stance could best be described as aggressive cowering. Sean yelled again, Shaq Fu! Manny, we need you! He didn't let his cry for help alter his unflattering attempt at a kung fu pose. Manny continued to weave his way through the crowd, but his progress was slow. People refused to step aside to clear a path for the young man who squirmed like he really needed to pee. Seth came closer and thrust the paint can forward. Sean swatted his hand at Seth and slapped the spray paint aside. Seth wrinkled up his face in surprise at the unexpected resistance. Who are you losers? Adam flung off his hat and mask, all while standing on one leg. He struggled not to topple over as he revealed his face. It's us, Jerkenstein! Oh, how lame! Seth looked at Cody, then Cody with an eye. It's the dorks from the Hero Moron podcast. Sean tilted his head to one side. Really? You didn't recognize Bruce? He pointed a thumb at his Burt Ward impersonating friend. Sorry, Seth shrugged. I guess all dingleberries look alike to me. Hey, snapped Sean, that dingleberry's my friend. Yeah, well, eat knuckles, turd breath. Seth swung his fist at Sean. The wide haymaker arced through the air. Sean grunted when the punch landed hard on his shoulder. He lowered his head and swung his leg around in a wild kick. Seth shuffled back to evade the slow-moving foot. His eyes remained locked on Sean while he plotted his next move. People altered the course of their walking to avoid the flailing nerds, but other than that, they hardly seemed to notice the fight. Cody lunged at Adam. Adam unleashed the crane kick he prepared in anticipation of just such an attack. He aimed it at Cody's fedora-topped face, hoping to knock the man to the ground and win a metaphorical All-Valley championship. Cody adjusted course and sidestepped the kick. Adam lost his balance and crashed to the ground. He landed on his rear with a cringe-inducing thud. He whispered, "I'm sorry, Sensei." At this point, several people stopped to spectate the unfolding brawl. The onlookers formed a semicircular perimeter that stretched from the cantina to the TARDIS and provided an arena of sorts. Cody with an eye darted toward Bruce. He wrapped his arms around the cowering man's neck and pulled him down into a headlock. His nose wrinkled as he said, "Maybe you should lay off the carbs, fat boy wonder." Bruce twisted his body in a futile attempt to free his head from the hold. In all the twisting, his mask came loose and fluttered to the tile floor. In his frustration, he grabbed his assailant's love handles and pinched them with all the strength he could muster. Cody with an eye's face turned red. Adam scrambled back to his feet. When he rose, Cody was behind him. Cody threw his arms around Adam from behind and squeezed. He said, "Wax on this, doughboy." The thrusting bear hug looked like a most inappropriate embrace for such a public place. Though violence was the intent, the execution suggested romance. A spectator called out, "Come on, man, that's gross." Adam shouted, "Quit humping me, Count Jerkula." He used the leverage provided by his height advantage and smashed an elbow down at Cody. The blow landed on Cody's forehead and knocked off his fedora. Stunned, the shorter man released Adam from his pseudo-amorous clutch. The onlookers cheered. Seth bared his teeth and launched his hands at Sean's throat. It was clear he aimed to choke the slender Spider-Man. His crazed eyes were tinged with bloodlust, driven mad by the man who dared interfere with his perceived divine right to vandalize. Sean caught Seth's hands with his own. He gripped them tight while Seth twisted, attempting to wrench them free. The two men swayed back and forth like nervous middle schoolers during their first slow dance. Beads of sweat collected on Bruce's forehead while it pressed against Cody with an eye's gut. He knew if he didn't free himself soon, the other guy would show up. He squeezed his thumbs and forefingers tighter, applying more pressure to his captor's love handles. Cody with an eye shouted, "Dude, lay off my abs!" Bruce shouted, "Don't you mean flabs?" The collection of forehead sweat was exactly what Bruce needed. The perspiration lubed up his face and allowed him to slip out of the headlock. He drew in a deep breath, relieved to be free. Cody with an eye stared at his empty arms in shock. Bruce unclamped his fingers from their flabby purchase and backed up. His back pressed against the horse-mounted Gatling gun. He looked around for his mask, but failed to find it. Manny at last emerged from the cantina crowd and sprinted toward the scuffle. He zipped into the space beneath the interlocked hands of Sean and Seth, where he crouched like a troll under a bridge. The armored young man said, "Get bent, bully nerd." He rose and thrust his arm forward. His open hand slammed into the center of Seth's chest. Seth slid across the tile floor like a hockey puck on freshly zambonied ice. He came to a sudden stop when he crashed into the front row of spectators. A collective gasp rose up from the crowd around the fallen man. Manny pointed at Seth. "That man tried to hit me." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Not cool, man. Treat Mrs. Potts with respect." Manny snarled. Seth climbed back to his feet. "You haven't seen the last of us." He pointed at Sean. "We're coming back, and we'll have a surprise for you losers." He turned and stomped away with his associates behind him. Cody had reclaimed his dislodged black fedora. The half-circle of spectators dissipated. Sean walked over to Bruce. "Are you okay, buddy?" One of the colanders was missing from his mask, leaving his left eye exposed. "Yeah, but I lost my mask." Bruce rubbed his forehead. "I can't believe nobody did anything when they attacked us." "You know how it is," said Sean. "So many things to see at the con, so little time." Manny turned around and crossed his arms. "That was easy enough. They ain't nothing to worry about." Bruce frowned and lowered his eyes. Seth said they were coming back. Adam joined them. Do you think they really will? Sean nodded. Yes. That was just the opening salvo. They were only filling us out. He put a finger on his chin. I fear this battle is far from over. We'll see, said Adam. Let's all hang tight right here. Bruce nodded and crossed his arms. Sean nodded and put an arm around Bruce. Manny nodded and planted his hands on his hips. A hirsute man dressed as Sailor Moon cleared his throat. Excuse me, guys. He clutched a My Little Pony plushie in one hand. Could you please move out of the way so I could see the gun? Oh, of course, answered Adam. They all scrambled to one side of the display and let the scantily clad man enjoy the view. Wow, said Sean. Those are some hairy gams. Chapter 25. The four Guardians stood firm before the Jonah Hex movie memorabilia. Their resolve strengthened. The would-be heroes felt emboldened by their previous victory. The quartet of defenders intended to ensure the display would make it through the day unharmed. Bruce stood sans mask. He suspected a scavenging passerby picked it up before he could locate it. He refused to let this dissuade him from his duty. Adam voluntarily eschewed his Guy Fawkes mask. He placed it with his bundled trench coat on the floor. His range of visibility was better without the hard plastic shell on his face. Sean stood with one eye exposed. He didn't bother trying to replace the perforated silver disc that dislodged from his Spider-Man head covering. Manny's armor was intact. His brown cape remained draped across his back. The crowd no longer grew, but it did remain near capacity for the convention center. The risk of collateral damage was high should more brutal fighting occur at any subsequent battle. Despite the number of people present, interest in the Jonah Hex display was casual at best. Bruce scratched under his bearded chin. When do you think they'll come back? Sean shrugged. I'm not sure when, but I have no doubt they will. Bruce wrinkled his forehead. What do you think they have planned? He looked at Sean. Seth said he was coming back with a surprise. Sean held his hands wide. Maybe he's bringing an army of sycophants. Adam grunted and shook his head. That's impossible. Nobody likes those jerks. Bruce said, maybe they'll bring water guns. Water guns? Sean chuckled. You think that would satisfy them, to spray us with water? No. Bruce's mouth became a hard line. I think they'll fill them with pee. Jiminy Christmas! Adam grimaced. You went dark with that. Bruce nodded and continued. They may have been saving their pee in milk jugs for weeks. They could have an inexhaustible supply. Manny frowned and looked up at the bearded man. I'm all for helping out, but if they start spraying old pee all over us, I'm gone. Christ! Why didn't I think of that? Sean rubbed his masked chin. We should have brought ponchos. I don't know. Adam tilted his head. It would be kind of hard to fight in ponchos. Bruce raised his eyebrows. It's harder to fight soaked in pee. Let's not give up hope. Sean let his hand fall from his chin. There's a slight chance weaponized urine may not be the surprise. Adam let out a long sigh. We can only hope. 30 silent minutes passed without incident. Fears of urine showering down from super soakers plagued the brave defenders, but they stood strong. A not-too-distant shout announced their enemy's return. We're back, losers! Seth had his arms spread wide in a premature gesture of triumph. Cody and Cody with an eye stood beside him. Sean spoke in a low voice. I don't see any water guns. A sinister smile crawled across Seth's face. And look who we brought! Seth and his underlings parted to reveal a hulking figure. A mountain of a man stood in a brown bear suit. The suit was constructed in such a way as to leave his face exposed beneath the bear's snout. It was a grizzled countenance, with the salt and pepper 5 o'clock shadow and a jagged scar running down his left cheek. He held a thin black cylinder in one hand. Oh, crap! Bruce opened his eyes wide. We're doomed! Manny furrowed his brow and looked at Bruce. What's so scary about an overgrown teddy bear? You don't understand, answered Bruce. That's Man in Bear Suit, though people usually call him Mibs. His face grew long. He's the most feared mercenary in Mecklenburg County. Manny squinted one eye. Really? Bruce nodded. I heard he likes to give people a Chelsea grin. Sean arched his lone, exposed eyebrow. What's that? You know, a Glasgow smile, answered Bruce. Adam looked at Bruce with a furrowed brow. I have no idea what you're talking about. Bruce grimaced. Like Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. Holy crap! Adam's eyes shot wide as saucers. He wants to give us a Joker face-cut smile? No! Sean raised a hand to his cheek. I can't let him do that to my beautiful visage. And that's not just any bear suit, said Bruce. Rumor has it, he got it made special from Kevlar-reinforced faux fur. Manny groaned. Well, crap. Man in bear suit whipped his wrist in a single quick motion. The black cylinder in his hand extended, revealing it to be a police baton. He swung the baton and the crowd parted before him, emitting screams of terror as it did so. The ominous furry rumbled toward the display. Manny clenched his teeth and ran to meet Man in bear suit head on. Sean shouted, Get him, little man! But be careful, added Bruce. He's a killer. Yeah, shouted Adam. Get him carefully. Man in bear suit swung the baton and a vicious swipe aimed at Lil Man's head. Manny blocked the blow with an armored forearm. He countered with an uppercut to the bear man's crotch. When his fist connected, it made a loud clunk, but had no effect on its recipient. Man in bear suit bared his teeth in a satisfied grin. I never leave home without a cup. He shoved one foot forward in a well-placed kick. Manny tumbled backward as the fur-covered foot slammed into his chest. Seth, Cody, and Cody with an eye charged forward. Adam, Bruce, and Sean ran to meet their enemy's charge. The six men crashed together like waves breaking on a stony shore. Adam collided with Seth, pushing the fedora-clad man back. Seth's hand shot forward and found purchase on the sensitive areas at the apex of each of Adam's man-boobs. He squeezed and twisted. Adam responded by gripping Seth's nipples in a likewise manner. The two men twisted away, locked in a high-stakes duel of purple nurples. Adam managed to speak through the pain. I can't believe you brought that lunatic mercenary. The cops will show up for sure now. Joke's on you, loser! Seth winced at the burning in his underdeveloped pecs. We barricaded the entrance. It'll take an hour for anyone to make it inside. Adam gritted his teeth and turned up the intensity on his areola twisting. Cody with an eye threw an elbow into Bruce's gut. Bruce doubled over from the force of the blow, his face twisted with agony. Cody with an eye kicked Bruce in the ankle, sweeping the bearded man's leg out from under him. Bruce crashed to the hard tile floor and whimpered. Cody with an eye ran for the display. One leg jerked out from under him and he face planted on the ground. He looked back and saw a length of yellow fabric looped around one foot. It was a cape. It was Robin's cape. Bruce hopped back to his feet. One hand gripped the other end of the cape. Never turn your back on a sidekick. He stretched both arms out and leaped on Cody with an eye's back. Sean exchanged poorly placed karate kicks with Cody. The determined combatants succeeded most often in hitting one another's shins, hurting the man who delivered the blow as much as the one who received it. Despite Sean's best efforts at defensive footwork, Cody inched closer to the display. Manny's roll, induced by the forceful kick to his chest, came to a stop. He crouched in a three-point stance with his eyes locked on Man in bear suit. He pushed off with his legs and leaped at his furry adversary. The tile cracked beneath the force of his kick. The armor-clad boy sailed toward the animal-themed mercenary's center mass. Man in bear suit swung his baton at Lil Man as if somewhere in his deranged mind he thought he could swat the superpowered child aside like a shuttlecock in a badminton match. Manny swung an elbow while he hurled through the air and knocked the baton free from its wielder's grasp. His shoulder crashed into the fur-clad man and drove him to the ground. Man in bear suit coughed and thrust his arms forward. He flung Lil Man off him. Manny flew backward from the toss. He tucked his body into a tight coil and rolled to soften his landing. Sean spied the Jonah Hex movie memorabilia from the corner of his eye. His battle had drawn so close to the display that his attacker could almost reach it. Defeat was imminent if he failed to drive Cody back. His eyes scanned the area for any item he could use as a weapon. In desperation, he grabbed the only thing he could find, a replica sonic screwdriver someone must have dropped in panic. He bent down to retrieve it and received a sharp kick to the kidney. It hurt like Hades, but he scooped up the screwdriver. Cody drew back his leg for another kick. "This one's going for your head." Sean bounced up and brandished the sonic screwdriver at his foe. "I'm not afraid to use this." Cody withheld his kick and took a slow step back. Adam squealed at the excruciating pain in his twisted nipples. He tried to give it as good as he got in the violent exchange, but he was losing ground. His nose tingled with the sensation of an oncoming sneeze. Try as he might, he couldn't hold it back. His head bobbed, and he unleashed a deafening "Achoo!" Seth recoiled as a mist of mucus and saliva sprayed onto his hands. He released his death grip on Adam's fleshy nipples and waved his hands about frantically. "No fair!" he shouted. "That's just gross." Adam said, "That's biological warfare, sucker." He released his own nipple grip and ran back to join Sean. Cody with an eye jerked his shoulders hard, and the brusque movement threw Bruce off his back. He climbed to his feet and loomed over the man he tossed. Bruce scampered on his hands and knees, crawling as fast as he could between Cody with an eye's legs. Once behind his enemy, he jumped to his feet and ran toward the Jonah Hex display. Sean called out, "Lil man, fall back! We need your help to hold the line." Manny nodded. He turned away from Man in Bear Suit and darted toward his assembled dads. The armor-clad hero moved with incredible speed. Man in Bear Suit growled and slowly rose back to his feet. His face twisted into a most sinister sneer, and he lumbered toward the line of men defending the display. One by one, Seth, Cody, and Cody with an eye joined the fur-covered mercenary in his march on the defenders of Jonah Hex. Sean held out the sonic screwdriver in a shaky hand. "We need to take the fight away from the movie memorabilia." "How can we do that?" asked Adam. Sean answered, "We need to flank them." "We can't possibly outflank them." Adam furrowed his brow. "We don't have a numerical advantage like we had the first time." Bruce lowered his eyebrows. "I think I know what we have to do." Sean glanced at Bruce. "Whatever you're thinking, I hope it's good. We're looking like dead men right now." "Lil man." Bruce put a hand on the young man's armored shoulder. "Do you have that finger with you?" Manny nodded. "Yeah. I brought it to gross out girls." Bruce said, "Give it to me." He held out an open hand. "Sure." Manny fished beneath his scrap metal armor and produced the finger of hide. It looked like a dehydrated sausage link with a yellow fingernail attached to it. Bruce took the finger, his face contorted in disgust. "God, this is so gross." He parted his lips and popped the finger into his mouth. Adam put a hand over his eyes. "I think I'm going to puke." Chapter 26. Bruce chewed the mummified appendage. The bones cracked between his teeth, making it a noisy endeavor. When he swallowed, he felt the yellow fingernail scrape his throat. With the ingestion complete, he smiled. "It doesn't taste as bad as you'd think." Sean tilted his head. "Do you feel anything?" Bruce answered, "No, not really." He stopped mid-sentence and his body jerked. His chest and shoulders heaved back and forth in opposite directions as the finger's sorcery overtook him. The bearded man folded to the ground and rolled violently, moaning in agony as he did so. Seth laughed and pointed. "It looks like your pudgy Robin is having a seizure." Man in Bear Suit snarled at Seth. "Shut up, dweeb. Let's finish this so I can get paid. I want to make it home in time for Family Feud." His voice was gravelly and filled with bass notes. Black smoke rose from Bruce's chest, accompanied by the sound of thunder. When the smoke cleared, an exact duplicate of Bruce was standing next to the one lying on his back. The new version wore a contemptuous sneer on his face. The newly appeared doppelganger looked at his tight-fitting Robin costume. "What have you done? You've gone and dressed like Shirley Temple." There was no mistaking the tone of this voice. This man was Dick Gunfighter. Man in Bear Suit raised one eyebrow. "What the hell is going on here?" Bruce bounced back to his feet. He appeared no worse for wear despite the violent fit he recently experienced. His eyes met his clone's and he said, "We need you to flank them." Dick Gunfighter laughed. "Ha ha, that shouldn't be a problem. These periwinkles look weaker than Kleenex loafers." He spat on the floor, and a vile green loogie splashed against the tile. "I would go for the ugly one, but with this group of moose jaws, that don't narrow things down." He smirked and looked over the approaching foes. "I think I'll start by pulling the batteries out of Teddy Ruxpin over there." The unnatural clone charged forth with both hands balled into angry fists, eyes fixed on the fur-covered mercenary. Man in bear suit met Gunfighter's charge with a right cross. The powerful punch landed on the charging man's chin. Dick's smile grew wider as he shook off the effects of the blow. "That ought to wake me up." He thrust his arms forward and grabbed 2 handfuls of faux fur. Gunfighter spun and dragged Man in bear suit around in a circle, like a whirling dervish. After 3 cycles, he let go of the bear-themed soldier of fortune. Man in bear suit slid across the floor, away from the display he sought to deface. He muttered a stream of profanities as he skimmed along the tile. "Now!" shouted Sean. "Go for their hats!" He poked Cody in the gut with his sonic screwdriver. Cody reacted to the discomfort by putting his hands over his belly. Sean snatched the black fedora off Cody's head. Adam reached for Seth's fedora. Seth shoved Adam back. "It's not that easy, Sneezy." Bruce popped up behind Seth and plucked the hat from atop the man's gel-saturated hair. He darted away before his victim could react. Cody with an eye put both hands on his head to secure his fedora. He kept an intense grip against his head. He was the only one still wearing a hat. Sean tossed Cody's hat to Bruce. "Run! Keep the hats away from them!" Bruce streaked past the Mos Eisley Cantina with a hat in each hand. Seth and Cody pursued Bruce. The panic on their faces suggested they feared what fate might befall their precious fedoras. Seth shouted, "Come on, Cody with an eye! Help us get that chunky bastard!" Cody with an eye joined the chase, though his pace was hindered by his refusal to take his hands off his hat. Sean's face snapped toward Adam. "Find a weapon!" He looked at Manny. "Try to get between those jerks and Bruce." Manny nodded. "I'm on it." He darted after the group of running nerds. Adam searched the nearest vendor's table for a weapon. His eyes settled on the perfect item, a vintage Stretch Armstrong doll. Those things were indestructible. He grabbed the doll by a leg and held it at his side. The showroom now looked empty, save for the 9 combatants. The attendees shoved against the perimeter walls and cowered in fear of the unexpected combat. There was ample space for a final pitched battle. Adam walked slowly toward Sean. He spun Stretch Armstrong over his head. "Let's go teach those jerks a lesson." Stretch's leg grew longer with every swing. Bruce stood grasping the fedoras with his back pressed against a replica Batmobile. The vehicle was fashioned after the one from the Tim Burton movie. He felt it an appropriate place to make a stand, given his choice of costume. He would have much preferred Adam West's Batmobile, but in a pinch, one takes what one can get. Seth and his toadies closed in on Bruce. Their faces were red with rage and their violent intentions were obvious. Seth drew back his fist and stepped toward the cornered hat bearer. He stopped in his tracks when something kind of, but not exactly, soft thumped the back of his head. "Meet Stretch Armstrong!" Adam whirled his weaponized toy around and struck Seth again. Seth cried out, "Quit! That feels like stale Jell-O!" Adam whacked him a 3rd time. "No mercy for the unjust!" Manny dove and slid across the floor on his stomach. His armor ground against the tile as he approached Bruce's pursuers. He grabbed Cody's leg and pulled. Cody fell back. He slammed to the hard floor with a whimper. He said, "Don't take it out on me. Seth made us do it." Manny rose and stood over Cody. "Sure, you're just following orders." He kicked the down man in the hip. "A lot of evil's been done with that excuse." Sean used the sonic screwdriver to poke Cody with an eye relentlessly. "So you think you can ruin everyone's fun?" The sonic screwdriver dug into its target's stomach, chest, and thighs. Cody with an eye was defenseless. He refused to take his hands off his hat. He kicked at Sean, but dared not raise his leg too high. There were some places he'd rather not get poked. A few yards away, Dick Gunfighter twisted his neck, and it cracked. He looked at Man in bear suit and said, "I could really go for a cigar right now, donkey mug." He waggled his fists in front of him. but I figure I've got to turn you into a butt-ugly rug first. You think so, nut job? Man in Bear Suit's lips curled into a sneer. Before you finish me, you've got to tangle with my buddy. Oh, yeah? Dick Gunfighter looked around. And where is this daisy-sniffing mutton chop your mama pays to play with you? Right here. The mercenary reached into his bear suit. His name is Desert Eagle. He pulled out a massive silver handgun. Holy hog leg! Dick Gunfighter jumped behind an abandoned table. Take cover, compadres. He's packing heat. An ear-shattering boom echoed through the showroom. Screams rang out from the cowering crowd along the walls. Adam and Sean leaped across the hood of the Batmobile and hid behind the car. Dick Gunfighter bounced out from behind the table and rolled across the floor. Your aim better improve, Pooh Bear. He ducked behind a row of stacked long boxes. I'm fixin' to make you regret shooting at me. His fist waved in the air. If you hit me, I'll get really mad. Manny turned and started toward Dick Gunfighter's position. Bruce grabbed Manny's cape. He's got a gun. I can't let you go out there. Manny looked up at Bruce and frowned. Come on, Beardy. We can't leave him out there all by himself. Bruce narrowed his eyes and flared his nostrils. I won't. He jerked his head toward the long black car beside him. Now get behind the Batmobile and protect your other two daddies. Manny gave his head a quick nod. He put a hand on the car's hood and bounced over it. Sean welcomed Manny with a pat on the back. Tell me, little man, are you bulletproof? Manny scowled at the one-eyed Spider-Man. How the hell would I know? I'd try my best not to get shot at. Sean nodded. Same here. Let's hope neither of us find out today. Bruce ducked and ran to the row of long boxes sheltering Dick Gunfighter. His girth combined with his posture to make his run look more like a waddle. He arrived behind the boxes and squatted next to his doppelganger. Dick Gunfighter looked at his twin. Nice of you to join the fight, Sally. I brought you into the world. Bruce stared at the ground rather than his clone. I don't like you, not one bit, but I feel responsible for you. Lucky me, said Dick Gunfighter. The lily liver is gonna save me. Another boom thundered through the room, and a section of Longbox disappeared in a shower of confetti. Dick Gunfighter grunted. Listen, Chachi, he can't take down both of us. He peeked around his cardboard barricade, then pulled his head back. Let's rush him like a gang of ladies at a Mel Torme concert. He frowned. One of us will probably die, but Grizzly Adams is going down. Bruce stiffened his jaw and nodded. Okay. Behind the Batmobile, Adam poked Sean in the ribs. Ouch! Sean swatted Adam's hand away. What did you do that for? Adam pointed up. Peek over the roof, see what's happening out there. Sean asked, why do I have to do it? Simple, answered Adam. You're skinnier. You'll be harder to hit. Sean groaned. Sure, but I'm just taking a peek. Don't expect a play-by-play. Adam gave Sean a thumbs up. A quick peek is fine. Sean bounced up, then ducked back down. What did you see? Asked Adam. Sean answered, Bruce and his evil twin are ducked behind some boxes. Manny looked at Sean. Will Beardy be okay? His voice wavered with fear. I sure hope so, little man. Sean put a comforting hand on Manny's shoulder. I sure hope so. Adam asked, what about the movie memorabilia? Is it okay? Sean shook his head. I don't know. I didn't look that direction. Man in bear suit crept toward the stacked long boxes with his gun pointed. You know you're done for. Might as well come on out. He looked at the watch sewn into his bear suit. Hurry it up. They're playing the feud in 15 minutes. Two men in ill-fitting Robin costumes stepped out from behind the boxes. They looked identical and stood shoulder to shoulder. They gave each other a quick glance, then rushed the gun-wielding mercenary. Man in bear suit fired his hand cannon, and another boom erupted. One of the pudgy Robins flew back. A gaping chest wound appeared over the area of the left breast that once sported a yellow R. The limp body landed with a thud. The form didn't move. The chest didn't rise and fall with breathing. It was clear to all who saw, this Robin was a dead bird. Manny shoved Sean. Take another look. We need to know what's happening out there. Sean bounced up again. This time, instead of immediately ducking back down, he watched in awe. The remaining Robin grabbed Man in Bear Suit's right wrist with his left hand. He lifted the gun hand into the air. Man in Bear Suit fired off another round. The bullet slammed into the high ceiling, sending bits of plaster raining down. The Robin slammed his right fist into Man in Bear Suit's elbow. It snapped. Man in Bear Suit bellowed out in pain. The gun fell from his now limp hand. The Robin maintained his grip on the mercenary's freshly broken arm. With his other hand, he grabbed the fur-covered villain by the throat. The bearded man grunted and shoved. Man in Bear Suit slammed against the floor. His right arm was limp and his chest was pinned beneath Robin's knee. "What's happening?" asked Adam. Sean trembled. I think Bruce has been shot." Adam's face turned pale. "You mean the real Bruce or the other guy?" Sean put a hand on his forehead and crumbled to the floor beside Adam. "I think the real Bruce got shot. Gunfighter just took down the bear man with some pretty violent moves." Manny sniffed, trying his best to hold back tears. "Are you sure it wasn't Beardy that took him down?" Sean crossed his arms over his bent knees. "Bruce is my best friend." "Don't you mean one of your best friends?" interrupted Adam. "Whatever." Sean waved a dismissive hand. "Anyway, I know him well. He isn't capable of that kind of violence." Manny could no longer hold back his tears. He sobbed openly. From atop the defeated Man in Bear Suit, the Robin said, "Guys, I think it's safe to come out now. I'm pretty sure I broke his arm." Adam's eyes shot wide open. "What? Is that?" Sean stood up and shouted, "Bruce, is that really you?" Bruce nodded. "Yeah, but I'm afraid the other guy might be dead." Sean, Adam, and Manny ran to join Bruce. Sean held his arms wide. "I want to hug you, buddy. I thought you were a goner." Bruce laughed. "Let's wait until the police get here. I don't want to let this guy get up." He nodded his head toward the fallen doppelganger. "Check on the other guy. See if there's anything we can do." Sean and Manny walked over to the clone with the massive chest wound. Adam said, "I'm going to check on the movie memorabilia." He walked toward the display. Sean reached down to check the fallen man's pulse. Before he could reach it, Dick Gunfighter's body started to smoke. Bubbles sprung up all over the dead man's face and torso, and within seconds, the body dissolved into a puddle of brown goo. Manny winced. "I guess the spell wore off." Sean shrugged. "I guess it didn't really matter if he got shot." Bruce's face twisted into a frown. "It seems a little too convenient, doesn't it?" The barricaded door to the showroom flung open, and a heavily armed SWAT team charged into the showroom. One of the officers lifted a bullhorn to his mouth. "You can relax, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the situation under control." "Well, braid my nose hairs and call me pretty," shouted Adam. He stood in front of the Jonah Hex display and frowned. "I can't believe this." "What is it?" asked Sean. "Just come see for yourself," answered Adam. Sean and Manny trotted over to join Adam. A police officer took custody of Man in Bear Suit and freed Bruce to join his friends. They all looked up at the movie memorabilia in disbelief. Spray-painted across the display in big red letters were the words, "This movie sucks." "Huh." Sean scratched his head. "I guess we did all this for nothing." Adam wrinkled up his nose. "So much for John Malkovich's oatmeal." He shrugged. "That guy's rich. He can afford to buy more." Manny took off his teapot helmet. "Where did those bully nerds go?" Bruce shrugged. "I don't know." He looked around. "They probably snuck into the crowd after they did their dirty deed." Manny shook his head and sighed. "It just don't seem right." A voice behind the gathered men said, "Guys, I'm really in a bind." They turned around and saw the speaker. It was Rocket Face, the incredibly handsome and charismatic fellow who organized the convention's panels. Rocket Face said, "With all the shooting and stuff, some of my panels canceled." He held his hands out by his sides. "I know it's last minute, but is there any chance you guys could fill in?" Adam crossed his arms and smiled. "Rocket Face, I think we might be able to handle that." Chapter 27. Early evening found the quartet back in the tiny apartment amid an atmosphere of exhausted satisfaction. A brush with death had left the group feeling more alive than ever. Despite the battles that consumed the early part of the con, they had managed to make the most of the day that remained. The men unfolded the card table in order to partake in an unprecedented Saturday edition of game night. The 20-sided die lay on the table's center, and various notebooks sat in their usual places. The Game Overlord screen was stretched across Adam's position, and the players gathered around him. Sean once again donned his black vest and white shirt. He rolled the shirt sleeves up to his elbows, looking even more casual than prior sessions. The man put a great deal of effort into looking relaxed. Bruce wore the floppy felt wizard hat and now gripped a wooden magic wand in his left hand. The wand was a gift from Rocket Face, a token of thanks for providing panel content on such short notice. This bit of magical accoutrement really tied his character's ensemble together. Manny now joined the fantasy questing party. His soft, faded t-shirt bore the faces of Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and Sophia. The Golden Girl's garb was also a gift, one given to him by Bruce. Though the young man had little appreciation for the saucy septuagenarians, he liked that it made one of his fathers happy when he wore it. Adam had on his old plaid bathrobe, the officially sanctioned Game Overlord uniform as declared by Adam himself. The belt was tied around his ample middle, but the top gaped open to reveal a picture of Daredevil on his shirt. Sean shifted in his folding chair. When do you think Seth, Cody, and Cody with an Eye pulled off their act of vandalism? Adam shrugged. It must have been while we were hiding behind the Batmobile. He held his hands wide. Gunshots have a way of distracting a person. You can say that again. Sean's face wrinkled with frustration. It still gets my goat that those turd burgers snuck away before the cops arrived. Bruce smiled and tilted his head. Well, they'll think twice before they try something like that again. Adam laughed. That'll be 2 more times than they've ever thought before. He smirked. Their podcast will languish in obscurity while ours grows ever more popular. Yes, the best revenge is a pod well casted. Sean furrowed his brow and looked at Bruce. So, I've got to ask you something. Bruce said, Fire away. Sean put an elbow on the table and rested his chin against his hand. Where did you learn those moves you used on Man in Bear Suit? Bruce shrugged. I don't know. I guess they've always been inside me. He lowered his face. I've always been afraid to fight on account of my nervous condition. His face lifted and he looked at Sean. But when the other guy was already there, I figured I didn't have to worry about him taking over. Sean nodded. You make a good point. I'm curious. Adam leaned forward and looked over his screen. Since the other guy is dead now, does that mean you're cured? I'm not sure. Bruce held his hands up by his shoulders. I'm feeling pretty good right now, so maybe I am cured. Adam winked at Bruce. Here's to hoping for the best. Bruce looked at Manny and smiled. You're in for a great time. This game is called M&M and M&M, and it's a blast. Manny wrinkled up his forehead. What kind of name is that? Adam held up a finger. It stands for Monsters and Magic and Mayhem and More Monsters. It's like Dungeons and Dragons, only 1,000 times better. What do you do? Asked Manny. Bruce tapped his wand to Manny's shoulder. You make a character to role play, then fight monsters. Manny nodded. I can handle that. Bruce held up a piece of paper. I've got an extra character sheet. I'll help you roll up a fighter. Manny scooted his chair closer to Bruce, and the two fellows set to work creating a new player character. A buzz emanated from the pocket of Adam's bathrobe. Adam frowned. Man, who's calling on game night? He pulled out the phone and answered. Hello? Speaking. Oh, yeah? Well, let me put you on speaker. He poked the phone's screen and activated the speaker. He held it up so everyone could participate in the conversation. The voice from the phone said, Hello, gentlemen. This is Dr. Hammerclaw. I'm calling with some further lab results. What kind of results? Sean leaned toward the phone as he spoke. You didn't get any of Manny's blood. Dr. Hammerclaw cleared his throat and said, that's true, but we did get some buccal mucosa samples. Ooh! Adam's face contorted in disgust. That sounds nasty. It simply means we swabbed his cheeks and got a few cells, said Dr. Hammerclaw. His voice sounded tinny coming from the phone's small speaker. Adam's face softened. Oh, that's not so bad. You should have said that to start with. Sean raised his eyebrows. What did you find out? Do you know who the biological father is? Dr. Hammerclaw answered, "That's what's so amazing. You see, his chromosome analysis revealed something very peculiar." "Yeah?" said Adam. "What's that?" Dr. Hammerclaw answered, "Well," he took a long pause, as if trying to decide the best way to communicate his findings to the layman. "It is something that has never been documented before." "Okay," said Adam. Sean shouted, "Come on, Doc, out with it." "Yes, of course," said Dr. Hammerclaw. "Well, as unbelievable as it may sound, young Emmanuel has 3 Y chromosomes." "Sure," Adam scratched his head. "So what? Doesn't everybody?" "Not at all," answered Dr. Hammerclaw. "You see, a male subject should only have 1 Y chromosome, but the child has 3. That's triple the masculine genetic material one would expect." "Is that why he's so strong?" asked Sean. "Perhaps," answered Dr. Hammerclaw. "To be honest, it's too early to say with any certainty, but that is an excellent hypothesis." Adam arched an eyebrow. "Do these chromosomes tell you who the dad is?" "That's the most amazing part," said Dr. Hammerclaw. "The Y chromosome in a male is provided by the father." "Yeah?" Sean put his hands behind his head and leaned back. "So, which one of us dealt 3 of a kind?" "That's what I was getting to." The volume of Dr. Hammerclaw's voice rose. "They aren't 3 of a kind at all. The young man has 3 different Y chromosomes." Adam furrowed his brow. "Is that a big deal?" "Yes," answered Dr. Hammerclaw. "Everything I'm telling you is a big deal. A very, very big deal." Sean sighed and rolled his eyes. "But you still haven't told us who the father is." "I'm trying to communicate that to you." Dr. Hammerclaw shouted into the phone. "Each of you seems to have contributed a Y chromosome to the young man." Adam shook his head. "I don't think I understand." "I'm pretty sure you don't," said Dr. Hammerclaw. "Let me make this clear. All 3 of you are Manny's biological father." Bruce lifted his face from the character sheet, showing the first sign that he heard the conversation. "That doesn't sound right." Dr. Hammerclaw said, "No, it doesn't. This flies in the face of everything I've ever learned about human reproduction, and I've learned a lot." Bruce said, "Wow." Manny groaned. "Leave it to my mama to break science." Dr. Hammerclaw said, "There's something else you should know." "What's that?" asked Adam. Dr. Hammerclaw answered, "I posted some of the results on the Freakish Medical Findings Forum." Bruce lowered his eyebrows. "That doesn't sound like a nice thing to do." "No worries," said Dr. Hammerclaw. "I didn't use any identifying information." Adam said, "Well, thanks for letting us know, I guess." "No, there's more." There was a tiny hint of worry in Hammerclaw's voice. Sean said, "We're all ears." "One of the doctors from the forum seemed to become obsessed with the case." Dr. Hammerclaw paused before continuing. "To be honest, he crossed some boundaries. He started cyber-stalking me." Adam shrugged. "Sounds like it sucks to be you." "Yes, it does," shouted Dr. Hammerclaw. "This man showed up at my office and demanded I give him copies of my files." Sean opened his eyes wide. "I hope you didn't hand them over." "Of course not," said Dr. Hammerclaw. "But last night, someone broke into my office and stole the files." Sean asked, "You think it was the same guy?" "Of course it was the same guy," shouted Hammerclaw. "Who else could it be?" "I don't know," said Adam. "Maybe a druggie?" Sean pointed at the phone. "Did he look like Kid Rock? I bet it was Kid Rock." "No, it wasn't Kid Rock," said Dr. Hammerclaw. "It had to be this unsavory physician. I did a little research on him. It turns out he had his board certification revoked for unethical practices." "Wow," Bruce rubbed his beard. "And now he has Manny's records?" "Yes," answered Hammerclaw. "You should be on the lookout for him. Avoid him at all costs." "Okay," said Adam. "Does this whack job have a name?" "Yes," answered Hammerclaw. "His name is Dr. Dan Dew, and I'm telling you, he's nothing but trouble." "Well," Adam crossed his arms and puffed out his chest, "we just defeated a mercenary in a bear suit. I think we can handle a disbarred doctor." Dr. Hammerclaw said, "That's a lawyer." "Huh?" Adam raised his eyebrows. "You told us he was a doctor." "Yes, Dr. Dan Dew is a doctor without board certification." Dr. Hammerclaw groaned on the other end of the line. "Lawyers are disbarred. There's no such thing as a medical bar." "I don't know," Adam shrugged. "There's a bar by Carolina's Medical Center where a lot of doctors hang out." "That's a different kind of bar." The mounting frustration was obvious in Dr. Hammerclaw's voice. "Just watch out for Dr. Dan Dew." "Sure," said Sean. "What does he look like?" Dr. Hammerclaw said, "He's ugly, really, really ugly. Once you see his face, you can't help but have nightmares about it. I would dare to venture that even his own mother can't bear to gaze upon it." "Got it," Adam nodded. "Avoid the evil, ugly doctor. Well, I've got to let you go. We're having an impromptu game night." "Yes," said Dr. Hammerclaw. "I'll let you know if there are any new discoveries." "Whatever." Adam ended the call without saying goodbye. "Well," said Bruce, "it looks like we've lost some C-grade movie memorabilia, but we gained a son." "Yes," said Sean, "a superpowered son we can exploit for our own benefit." Bruce shot a cold stare at Sean. Sean laughed uncomfortably. Yay, a son. His attempted enthusiasm was not convincing. It's time to revisit Shadow Dark. Adam tucked in behind his Game Overlord screen. "Do you guys have your characters ready?" He opened his campaign notes. Sean nodded. "Yup, I'm totally not Han Solo. I'm a rogue named Sam YOLO." He raised an eyebrow. "His motto is, you only live occasionally." Adam put a finger on his chin. "I'll have to give you bonus experience points for putting an unexpected twist on YOLO." Bruce waved his wand with a flourish. "Chubby wizard at your service, chubbier and wizardier than before." Adam smiled. "I like it. How about you, Manny?" Manny held up his freshly constructed character sheet. "I'm Kid Gorgeous. I'm a fighter." Bruce looked at Manny through narrow eyes. "Remember, you're not just a fighter." Manny smiled. "That's right. I'm a tank." Bruce looked at his cohorts, appreciating that the questing party now contained 3 adventurers rather than 2. He held his magic wand high. With an eager smile on his face, he said, "Now bring on those giant rats!" So that's it. That's Nerdspawn Genesis. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think. If you want to buy a copy of the book, either for yourself or as a gift for someone else, it is available for purchase on Amazon. There's a link in the show notes, or you can simply search Nerdspawn on Amazon. The ebook is only $2.99, so, maybe if you just want to give me a little encouragement or you want to say thank you or something like that, you can buy the ebook. You don't have to read it, if you've already heard it, but you can have it. Also, you might want to check out my other books, Dragon Blinder, which is the ebook for the collected Lump Adventures, or you can buy those paperbacks individually. Those are Dragon in the Needles, Dragon in Gallus, and Dragon in the Darklands. Or you can check out Chubby Wizard, Wrath of the Manticore. The email address, if you haven't caught that before, my email address is laundryroombruce, all words spelled just like you think, @gmail.com. Also on Twitter, it's @HVPodcast. That's @HVPodcast on Twitter if you want to communicate with me there. And of course, there is the Facebook page, facebook.com/Heroes and Villains Podcast. So I'm not sure what comes next. I'm not sure, but I'd like to do some more stories. So whatever comes next, I'll talk to you when I figure it out.